Hello, my name's Chris, and today I'm going to talk you through all the qualifications that you might need or want to start teaching English overseas. That's including one that you might have already, and if you don't have it, you can't get. So anyway, I'll see you there. What I'm going to tell you about is being a native English speaker. This is the one that I said at the beginning you might already have, and the one that if you haven't got it, you can't get it, because it doesn't matter how well you speak the language, unless you are from an English speaking background. So your parents were English speakers and that is the language that you were taught first, or you learned first, or alongside another language. You can never become a native English speaker, because that's not the definition of the term. This is grossly unfair, because there are many people who've learned English as a second, third, fourth language who are better at teaching it than a lot of the native English speakers I've met on the circuit over the years. But they're not as good for a school's marketing. And that's what the schools want. They want to sell a product that has something different, something not unique, but maybe unusual, and that is the native speaking foreigner that they've shipped in from somewhere who sells the whole thing for them. Again, grossly unfair, but if you are a native English speaker, you will have an easier time on the circuit. Is it enough? Yeah, I know people who have picked up jobs purely because they're native English speakers. I don't think I've ever known anybody who's kept a job for long who's approached it that way. But yeah, if you're going away for a bit of a road trip or something and you would like to pay your way around Asia or wherever, picking up jobs in schools and doing a little bit of teaching, just being a native English speaker is enough. If you've been interested in teaching English overseas, you've doubtless looked online at all the courses and things that are available to you, and we'll cover, well, hopefully most of those in this video. The one you will have seen most is no doubt a TEFL, Teaching English as a Foreign Language certificate. These vary a lot. They're good, but they're not really standardized. So if an employer is looking at your CV or the certificate that you're waving in front of him in his language school, and it's a TEFL certificate, they don't really know what it is that you've studied. Some TEFLs will have a practical element where you have an observed teaching practice. Others won't. Some focus heavily on grammar, others don't. Some focus heavily on teaching and learning in theory, others don't. They vary from 20 hours to 120 hours. I think I've seen a 200-hour one somewhere. Some of them are good, some of them are rubbish. Will they give you enough background to get started? Well, yeah, they're absolutely better than nothing. They're not going to stand out to an employer other than to say you've made some sort of effort. So I think the time that they're going to be most useful to you is if you're going for a job against someone who's just saying, I'm a native English speaker, and you can say, I'm a native English speaker with this piece of paper. To be honest, if you've got the time and the finances to do it, I'd go for the next one. Okay, next up is the CELTA. That's the Certificate of English Language Teaching for Adults. I'll also put the Cert TESOL in there in the same category, one's from Oxford, one from Cambridge. They're similar in quality. So this is like an in-depth TEFL course, the thing we spoke about in the last section, but it's standardized. So an employer looking at your CV or certificates or whatever can see that you have done a particular course and you will have been trained to do X, Y, and Z. So CELTA includes a grammar module that's going to teach you your way around grammar. It will teach you phonetics. It will teach you teaching approaches. You will have to read a fair amount. You will have to write various essays about all the aspects of English teaching. You will do an in-depth study with a particular learner. You also have, I think it was 6 observed teaching practices upon which you are assessed, and that's the bulk of the assessment, is how well you apply everything you've learned to the classroom with live students. And compared to the TEFL certificates out there, this really is the best qualification that you can take. If you're going without a degree or you're going without any other qualifications, CELTA, quite demanding, quite expensive, but definitely worth it. You can manage without, as we've just discussed. But if you want jobs in the better language schools, and we are talking still language school jobs with the CELTA, it's absolutely the best qualification that you can pick up anywhere. Go and do one. Next up is a degree. I'm talking about a university degree, a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Education, that kind of thing. Refer to it as a first degree because it's usually the first degree that you'll get. It doesn't refer to you having a first in your degree. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. This is useful because a lot of countries have laws to say that they can't employ a foreigner if a local person could do the job better or equally well. I think that's a very reasonable rule. But it's a very hard one to judge. Obviously, you bring somebody into the country, you've never seen them work, so you don't know. They might be rubbish. It might be that all the local people are better than they are. You've no way of knowing. So what they do is impose minimum requirements for being allowed to work in the country. And very often, and in an awful lot of countries, that is a degree. Now, that degree doesn't have to be in a related subject. We're not looking at a degree in applied linguistics necessarily. Mine's in theatre. It's not related really to English teaching. It's got a slightly literary thing about it, but it's not related to teaching English. And it gets me where I need to be. That certificate is currently being verified in the UK to take me to China. Beyond the requirements of the country that you're going to, a degree is frequently required as the minimum qualification to get into formal education establishments. So I'm talking about jobs now beyond the level of private language schools where people will go on the evenings and weekends to improve their English. Now, with a degree, we can start looking at schools, state schools, private schools, international schools, colleges, universities, that sort of thing, wherever English teaching is required. So if you're looking at taking this a little bit more seriously, and do excuse my phone, if you're looking at taking this a little bit more seriously and maybe making it into more of a long-term option, a degree is a very, very useful thing to have. Right, once you've got your degree, there is another thing that will be massively useful for you if you want to pursue a career in teaching. And that seems obvious, is a teaching license. So in the UK, we refer to this as QTS, Qualified Teacher Status. I believe in the States you refer to it as a teaching license. I'm not 100% sure, but you know the thing I mean. It's the qualification or the certificate that allows you to teach in schools in your own country. This is absolutely the gold standard for getting you a job in formal educational establishments in other countries. If you have one, that's absolutely brilliant. You will need a degree to get one anyway, so you will have that under your belt as well. And once you reach that level of qualification, you can pick up work pretty much anywhere. That's exactly where I am in my qualifications. I have the CELTA, I have part 1 of the Delta, I have a degree in theatre, and I have qualified teacher status, and that allows me to pick from jobs all over the world. You don't need it. Again, it depends what you want out of this. But if you're looking at this as a career and you want the higher paying jobs, and there are some really well paid jobs out there, a teaching license or QTS is something that you should definitely consider getting, because it will make a huge difference to the amount of money you can earn doing this for a living. Moving now into qualifications above the level of a degree, we've got the Delta. Remember back to the CELTA, the Certificate of English Language Teaching for Adults? They do a diploma, so there's no mystery as to what Delta stands for. This is a much more in-depth version of the CELTA. It covers all the same areas, but in much more detail and in much more depth. It's a very challenging course. It's an expensive course to do. I mean, we're running into thousands. And in all fairness, I've never seen it as a basic requirement for a job. After the first stage of mine, I would love to complete it when time and money allow, but right now, I just don't have the time. I don't want to spend the money. Like any other certificate, if you're going for a job up against someone who doesn't have that certificate or have a certificate at that level, it's going to give you an edge. But I've never seen a job advertised that says Delta is a minimum requirement. It's more of a wish list thing for schools. And in all fairness, it's not something that I think you need to worry about if you're just setting out into an English teaching job, career, whichever way you want to approach it. It's something that might be useful to you later, and I'd leave it until later before you think about getting one. The last one I'm going to talk to you about is a master's degree. I'm including it because we've been steadily going up the levels of qualifications, and this one I think is about as high as anyone would need to go in a English language teaching career. And this is a nice to have kind of qualification, certainly in the early stages of your career. If you've got one and someone else hasn't, again, you're ahead of them for the job. But it's rare to see one advertised as a requirement. I mean, in all fairness, having said that, it is becoming more common recently as we start to find that degrees are being given away almost in packets of cornflakes. The bar had to be raised in order to differentiate between candidates, and some people now are insisting on a master's degree, but not many. So if it's not something that you have already, I wouldn't be thinking of doing it just to move into English teaching. It's a nice to have, but it's demanding, it's eye-wateringly expensive, and probably, certainly in the earlier stages of your career, probably not that valuable to you. Okay, so that's it. Those are the qualifications that you might want to consider if you're going for a job or a longer-term career in teaching English overseas. As I said at the beginning, you don't really need any of them. You can get by without any of them if you're lucky and if you happen to be particularly gifted in the classroom. Would I try to go and do it without any? No, I wouldn't. I would look at least a TEFL. I would suggest that you push it that little bit further in terms of effort, time and financial commitment, and do the CELTA. But again, that's not something that you're necessarily going to need. That would just be my approach, and that is just my opinion. In the next video, we're going to look at the different kinds of jobs that are available and where you can look for them. So, until then, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.